and welcome to the Melrose Minute, where we bring you news you can use from City Hall. I'm Mayor Jen Grigoraitis, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Superintendent of Melrose Public Schools, John Macero. Thank you, Superintendent, for being here, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So we're in the school budget process, which is taking a very complicated and nuanced process and boiling it down to a few school committee meetings, which folks can certainly watch more information. So I was hoping in the time we have today, you could tell us a little bit about the Melrose Public Schools and the budget process.
Sure. So you are correct. We've started the Melrose budget process. We started it in January, but we've started this back in October from the administration standpoint. What I will tell you is the budget that we've prepared for fiscal 25 is what we call a level service needs-based budget. So a level service budget basically says you're going to take all of the current services that you have and you're going to have those for next year. And what does that cost with all the fixed costs that happened? But a needs-based is, what are you missing? And so one of the things that when I came into Melrose this year was folks had asked, when you put together the budget, could you tell us what we need to hear? Not what we may want to hear, but what we need to hear. So we did that. And I know that Melrose in the past year has also started that process about what it is that they wanted to have, that what would the total cost going to be. So that's what we've done this far. And what we've done, and in January we presented that level service needs-based budget. So I believe it's that the second school committee in January. You want to watch that. That breaks down every particular on that. And then over the course of in February and in March, we've had our elementary principals, our middle school principal, high school principal, our special ed director, and our assistant superintendent of special education, and our assistant superintendent of teaching and learning talk to the school committee about those specifics that we're looking for in the budget. We're at the process in our budget timeline now where next Tuesday will be public hearing. So folks can come down and talk about what those proposals are. If they have any questions, they can ask those questions at a public hearing. And it gives the community the opportunity to get public input. Are we moving in the right direction? Do they feel that we should be looking at other things, or are they satisfied with what we are presenting? So that's the process. And then what will happen in the 2 meetings in April, that's really the opportunity for the school committee to now really, for themselves, have an opportunity to kind of dissect all of this information and start to talk about it and make decisions on what they're going to recommend to the city side.
So thank you for that overview. Just for the folks watching at home, so when we talk about FY25, we're referring to fiscal year 25, which
Correct.
starts
July
1st.
That's right.
2024 to June 30th, 2025. So our fiscal year actually also corresponds with our school year. So we're talking about the budget for next school year that'll start in September.
That is correct.
You mentioned that you've created a level services budget ask, and which is different than level funding. So can you kind of talk about what those differences are and what are some of the drivers in the school budget that prevent us from providing level services with level funding?
Sure. So level funding would mean you would give the same amount of money that we currently have this year and just say that's all you're going to have next year. The issue with a level funding budget is that that's an automatic reduction, because level service, our budget is basically 90% is personnel. So when you take a look at that, and there's all contractual, a lot of it is contractual obligations. So currently next year we're entering into the 3rd year of a lot of those contractual obligations. So not only do they increase by the percentage of what's agreed upon in the contract, but in the teachers and lanes, the Unit B secretaries, paraprofessionals, even in our administrative contracts, they all have what they call steps in lanes. So those steps are going to increase. So that, when you say level service, we are incorporating all of those increases into that budget, as opposed to just level funded.
Okay, great. And there are other costs that we also, are set by the state. For example, the cost of out-of-district placements.
Correct.
So there are many things that, with, like everything in life, the cost is going up, and so it's taking more money for us to provide the same service year over year.
Right, and one of the things that's important about that is that we, out-of-district placement is, the reason for out-of-district placement is because we cannot provide that service for that child here in our own system. So we provide that elsewhere for them, but we take care of the cost. Now, those schools can go up and they can increase their tuition for however much that they, choose. Usually it's been an average between 5 to 10%. This past year was 14%. So that really took a chunk out of all of the local, towns and cities. So next year we've incorporated that in, and we've looked at, it won't be a 14%, but we've looked at it to be more of probably anywhere, the average would be between an 8% type of increase in that. The other area of the fixed cost is the transportation. Transportation goes up. COVID did a lot, and those services have increased. So what happens is, in the town, the city budget, you can only go 2.5% increase, but vendors and other places can go higher than that 2.5. So we already start the year in a deficit.
Yep.
And so that's part of the issue, is when we're trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward, we have to look at all of those fixed costs.
And we see that on the city side as well. For example, the health insurance costs for all of our employees, school and city side, are expected to go up between 6 and 11% next year, which obviously far exceeds the 2.5%. So then you're looking for how to make up that mandatory increase in other budget lines. So it's challenging all around.
Yeah, it's extremely challenging, and we have different increases that happen, and then of course the needs part of the budget that we talked about, that's what are we missing, and it's quite clear what we are missing in Melrose right now, and part of that is we need valuable positions at the middle school. Our middle school is it needs to be right-sized. Currently we are, and believe it or not, we are 15 positions short. There's just no question about it. We have over 900 students that are and that means over our classes in 6, 7, and 8 are over 300 students. And these are students, what people have to understand too is that our middle school students 4 years ago were in the first, second, and third grade. And now 4 years later, after COVID, are in 6, 7, and 8, who lost a year and a half of consistency, of routine. And so there's a lot of stuff that we're having to peel away. Just because COVID's not over, it's not over in the sense of what we keep peeling down to say, how do we get our students back into routines? How do we resolve those behavioral issues? How do we resolve all of these types of things? And we're still working on a budget where teachers are teaching 275 students, whereas now we've increased to 310, 315. And so we have to adapt to that. And one of the things with the budget moving forward is that my goal before I leave is to fix the middle school issues, because I do believe that right now they are the most vulnerable, and that is a priority.
Thank you for identifying that priority. And you mentioned, we have 900 kids in the middle school. I think everyone in Melrose is hopefully proud of our public schools, but may not necessarily be familiar with it. So could you just talk a little bit about number of students, number of staff?
Sure.
What does our district look like?
So we have over 4,000 students in the city of Melrose. The high school has about 941 students, give or take. Now the high school has 4 grades, and people may say, well, geez, that's 4 grades, but 900 students. And then think about the middle school, only 3 grades having over 900, so they're almost equal. When students do leave the 8th grade, some students will tend to go to the vocational if they want to go for that trade, or they may go to a private school. So we tend to, 30 students might come off of a 8th grade class on an average year that would go out. And then the remaining amount of students are in our elementary schools. So we have 6 elementaries. We have, the preschool and kindergarten at Franklin, and then all 5, Roosevelt, Hoover, Horace Mann, I'm getting a good test here, Lincoln, and Winthrop.
Yep.
So those schools have any range from 265 students to 350 of students that are in there, depending upon the size. So that's, and we're seeing those classes increase from grades K right up through 8th grade now. 8th graders are, currently 8th grade was 275 moving up to the high school, but next year middle school will have over 300 in each grade. And when you look at grades K through 5, you're looking at students primarily for grades 1 through 5, right at that 300 threshold. So, the days of us looking at 275 and stuff, that's changed. We have to look at class sizes now based on 300, which means we have to figure out what does our staffing look like. And that's one of the things that we want to fix at the middle school, of course, is to bring those class sizes down and then not only have it for their core subject area, but when they go to their, what we would call a cross team, the encore subject of music, art, wellness, world language and stuff, we want to match that number as well so that that number never rises. So we have the same amount of sections here as we have the same amount of sections there. And then we feel that that will also allow our students to feel like, okay, this is the structure is a little stronger than having students empty out into a larger crowd going into a smaller group, and it just, it doesn't work that way.
So we have a thriving school population that's growing, which comes with challenges, but also shows really the strength of the community, I think.
You do, and what? One of some nice strengths that you have in Melrose, your athletics, but your arts are very strong here. I know this weekend, Sunday, our band is playing at Symphony Hall.
Yes, they are.
I mean, that's wonderful, to see that. We had the drama department in the state semifinals. We have a full orchestra. We have a full choral program. A lot of districts in your area are trying to strive to have that. We have that in Melrose. We don't want to lose that. I know the athletics are strong, but the other thing at the high school, you have a phenomenal AP program. Most of our junior class students all take AP English language. So that, right there we are, challenging those students. So when you take a look at your system, Melrose is very strong. It's got a lot of opportunity, and I always worry when you get to budget because you don't want to lose that opportunity. You want to gain. You want to keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And as we wrap up, I know you came out of retirement to spend this past year with us, for which we're very grateful.
Thank you.
What's been the best surprise about Melrose?
Oh, I think obviously I enjoy working with the students and the staff. I think the honesty. I really think the best surprise has been the honesty, and one of the things the reason why I came to Melrose and did come out of retirement is because I saw a group when I interviewed with the school committee. Right after that interview, I got emails from parents, and I knew some parents from having them as teachers in other districts, but they were like very genuine and very honest and saying, could you help us here? And I just felt, this might be a good opportunity. It was good for me to take a break. It was good for me to come back. Looking forward to going back to retirement.
We'll let you go back.
But yes, I think that's the genuineness of students, staff, parents, and the honesty.
Well, thank you for that. And as the parent of 2 Melrose Public School students, thank you for spending the past year, making us better, and for this budget update. Just to remind folks watching that the public hearing for the school budget will be held on Tuesday, March 26th at 7 p.m. in the City Council chamber, and you can tune in via MMTV or join us in person. Thanks, Superintendent Macero, for being here today.
Thank you.